Allow me to offer introductory remarks. Welcome to our CMARN special webinar. We'll be focusing on the writing for the forced migration. This is in response to a call for papers by FMR, and a lot is going to be said about that. I'm not going to dwell much on the call. I'm sure Alice is going to take us through. But before I invite our key experts to speak to us, allow me to briefly highlight what forced migration review is all about. This is, it brings together diverse authors, and it has been in existence for over 30 years, and it's one of the most widely read publication in forced migration as well as globally. It's and it is published in several languages, including French. So I think that's all I can say for now, and I'm sure Alice is going to give us more detail in terms of regarding forced migration. Without much ado, allow me to introduce our speaker. I'm not sure if Tamara, if you have something else to say before we start with our presentations. That being the case, allow me to introduce our speaker, Alice Philip, who is the managing editor at Forced Migration Review. Alice joined Forced Migration in 2021, and prior to that, she has held quite a number of roles in communication within international development, including the editor of a magazine for community development. She did her undergraduate studies in social and political science at Cambridge University, and has master's degrees in development studies from SOAS as well as Malmo University. She has lived and worked in Russia, in Kazakhstan, and has worked with a number of FMRs across Asia as well as West Africa. So I think with that, allow me to invite Alice to give us a presentation, and after that we will invite our next speaker, that is Dr. Nicodemus. Over to you, Alice, to give us a presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Thabo. It's good to be reminded of how I came to be the managing editor of Forced Migration Review, and thank you for kindly sharing a little bit of that bio. I did work for a while as part of a West Africa focused team. So it's a particular pleasure to be back in an African context, albeit remotely. And I am married to a South African, so I do visit the continent fairly regularly, at least once a year, and yeah, have a great affection for it. So I'm delighted for those of you who are here in person and those who will watch later, that we have this opportunity to just unpack a bit about what it would look like to write for Forced Migration Review. And I do hope that many members of the CMARN network will submit proposals this time on this topic of climate mobility, but also in future, because climate is such a mainstream issue for us that it often comes up in different calls. So don't think if we don't do climate, we'll never have another opportunity to submit, because actually it's a cross-cutting issue, isn't it? It affects so many things. Thabo very kindly told you a little bit about Forced Migration Review, and so I thought I would not repeat all of that, but maybe show you what it looks like, because then you can imagine it a little better. So let me share my screen here. So hopefully, hang on, this works. Okay, here we go. So here is, are you all seeing that?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Yes, great. So here is the front page currently of Forced Migration Review. We got a new website last year, which is a big improvement on the last one. I'm going to show you the latest issue, which was on financing displacement response. And you can see there are different ways to look at the magazine. You can download it if that's the easiest way for you. You can read it online, all the articles individually, or you can look at it as a sort of PDF like this. So here is the magazine. We've always been a physical magazine and also an online magazine, and we do send, we mail the magazine to 160 countries. So, but that's now represents a much smaller part of our circulation. We have a mailing list of about 12,000 people, and that's really the main audience. So let me just open that up again. So we publish in 4 languages, as Tabo mentioned. So French is one of them. It means that we don't just publish in French, we also are happy to receive proposals in French. We don't edit ourselves in French. We get it translated into English, we edit, and then we write back, but we can correspond in French with you. So for you, it will be a French experience. For us, because we're Anglophones, we need to edit in our mother tongue, but the end result would be translated into all the languages for publication. So if you are a French speaker or a Spanish speaker, please, I mean, you might not be a Spanish speaker, but I'm just saying, or an Arabic speaker, then that is an open opportunity for you. With this particular issue on climate, unfortunately, we don't have enough funding to publish it in French, but we will still be happy to receive proposals in French, and we would still be happy to receive your article in French. And that's because as Forced Migration Review, we really believe that we need to hear from all voices that we can, and that language is often a barrier. Now, if you want to write your article in Swahili, then we would also be open to talking to you about that. But the main languages that we feel confident about supporting are currently French, Spanish, and Arabic. So as you can see, we have quite a range of articles. We have, in general, we have between 18 and 25 articles per issue. I'm going to just go back here so that I can show you a little bit about the type of articles, because Tamara was asking me to maybe share some examples to give you an idea of what types of thing we include. So you can see in this one on financing displacement response, the range of articles that we have. This one was about changing the game, the World Bank's contribution to forced migration, forced displacement response, by Bahati, who's originally from DRC, and Marta. And this was, yeah, very focused on that kind of institutional level, international response. This one was by a Turkish author. She was writing about empowering Syrian women, the impact of Gulf donors' humanitarian funding. So quite an interesting niche area. How are funders in the Gulf states funding humanitarian work? Taras Romoshenko, he's a Ukrainian scholar who's currently displaced in, I think, Austria. And his article was really interesting. It was about reverse remittances, so sending money back to Ukraine rather than, sending money from Ukraine to people in the displaced communities around Europe. And that was really interesting because, again, it was quite different from the normal conversation about remittances. Boyle wrote about community support in underfunded refugee camps, stories from Isaita, sorry if I said that wrong, and Dadaab. And in this one, you'll see that it is more case study focused. There are lots of individual stories that illustrate how communities are helping each other without institutional or foreign funding. This is communities of mutual aid. I'll just skip down, but just give you a few more examples. This one here was a really good article by some members of a refugee-led organization in Egypt. You probably have heard of them. They're called STAR, St. Andrew's Relief. Now I can't remember because they was known as STARS. Anyway, they wrote about their experience of being the recipients of funding and how there were real challenges with large donors, but how they felt that refugee-led organizations were really efficient, cost-effective, and sustainable. And again, their examples are all from their own experience and perspective. Let me see if there's just one more that is of interest. Oh yeah, this was also an African colleague, Remy Colombo, who is in DRC, and he was talking about the dilemmas faced by humanitarian actors in trying to allocate funding when there's not enough funding, essentially. So the conflict in DRC, as we all know, is very underfunded, and he was exploring some of the challenges of that. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavor. It's a totally different topic, so I just wanted to give you a bit of a sense that our authors come from all over the world, and they have lots of different positions. So we have academics, we have practitioners, we have people who are currently studying, perhaps PhD students, we have early career researchers, we have much more established researchers, and we have many people amongst all of those categories who themselves have refugee or forced migration backgrounds. And we want to hear from voices particularly who are not always heard in this space. And we want to give people opportunities, particularly if they're new to being published, to sit alongside some more established voices. Let me go back to the homepage. So, as Tamara mentioned, our next call for articles is actually on a topic very close to your hearts, and it is on climate change, choices for displaced people. I think that Tamara is going to share the call link with you, so you can look at it as well if you want to. You'll see here the introduction. I might read some of it because I probably wrote it better than I could say it now. The impacts of climate change are rendering homes uninhabitable, livelihoods unsustainable, and lives at risk in hazard-prone areas around the world. I should say sorry for the interpreters. This is not available in French, this call, so apologies. Climate-related disasters displace people, as we know, it's your area. What we want to explore in this issue is the impacts of climate change from the perspective of those most affected, people at risk of displacement, those who are currently displaced, and those who are already building new lives beyond displacement. What choices are people making and why? Where are new options, opportunities, and pathways needed? And what will it take to create these? What safeguards are needed to mitigate power imbalances and facilitate displaced people's equitable access to resources and tools. What we then do in a call is we pose a number of questions. These questions aren't all the questions that you could answer, but it gives strong examples of things that we're looking for. So you'll see we put them under some different categories: disasters, displacement and choice, planned relocation and other options, livelihoods and integration, financing and politics, and data. And then we've got some more general topics that if people wanted to cover them, they could. So the effects of climate change on people displaced by other causes, such as conflict, how gender, age, disability, language, cultural identity, and other characteristics affect people's experience of displacement, specifically in the context of climate change, differences between choices available to those affected by slow onset or rapid onset disasters, displaced people's participation in policy discussions, interactions between displaced communities and the private sector, and cultural and/or psychological aspects of climate-related displacement. I hope that you'll be able to read this in more detail and see if any of your areas of research match with some of these topics. If it doesn't answer exactly a question, that's still okay to submit. But these are the kind of general areas that we're trying to look at. So that's the call. I think I'll go on to maybe the process of publication, and I'll stop sharing so that I can just talk you through it. So it takes us about a year to produce FMR from the point that we begin. So we start by deciding what topic to do and then working with experts in the field that we're thinking about to design the call for articles. And that means that we talk to researchers, to practitioners. We always include people who have forced migration backgrounds within that group, and we try to craft something that will work as a call for articles. We then publish it, and we invite people to submit a proposal. The proposal should be up to 300 words, and it should give us, as the editors, a really good idea of what you're going to talk about in your article and why it matters, why we should pick this topic, this proposal. To give you an idea of the volume that we receive, the last call for articles had 180 proposals that we received, and we could only pick 40 to be taken to the next stage. So we get a panel of reviewers, and we read through all of the proposals, and we try and work out what is a good group of articles that gives a diversity of topic, a diversity of regions, a diversity of authors, some practitioner, some academics. And again, we always make sure that we have the highest percentage that we can of people who themselves have experienced displacement. Once we've chosen 40 or so proposals, those people, if they accept the challenge, will write up the article, and the article would be about 2,300 words. That's the limit, but it could be shorter. And then we go into the next round of reviewing. So then we get another set of reviewers to look again at the full articles. That's a lot of reading for us, but it's a really amazing phase to read what everyone's produced. And then we have the very difficult set of decisions to decide what will we actually publish. So we normally publish, as I said, between 18 and 25 articles. So once we've chosen those and we tell the authors, we begin the editing process. And our editorial process is very engaged, it's very supportive, So what we do is we do cut quite a lot to make sure that the flow is the best it can be, and because we need to fit as many articles as we can. So most articles will end up a few hundred words shorter. We specialize, I guess, in helping people who maybe English isn't their first language, or they haven't really done a lot of publication work before, and we specialize in helping to craft their article. But we really want to make sure that we keep your voice. So it will still very much sound like you. We're not trying to undo your work. We're just trying to make sure that the readers can hear your message. So that's what we do in the editing. So there'll be a few back and forth moments with you as an author, and then you sign it off. Nothing will be published without you signing it off. And then we move to the publication stage. And that's where we are now with our current issue on dangerous journeys, which is about saving lives at sea and on land, and dealing with the issue of missing and lost migrants. So at this stage, we get it all designed and we start to think about the impact of the issue. So our goal as Forced Migration Review is to have better outcomes for forced migrants. So we're not an advocacy organization, but we're hoping that by putting these articles in people's hands, things will change. Learning will be shared, networking will be done, and hopefully that policy and practice will also change. So we make sure that we advertise and promote this issue to as many key people as possible, as well as our 12,000 people on our mailing list. And so, for example, for this one, I'll be sending it to very key members of Parliament in the UK, in the European Parliament, and then I've got partners in different countries who are going to do that with their own members of Parliament. We also share it on a lot of different newsletters and policy networks, and the likes of wonderful organisations like CMARN who bring people together around a topic. So that's the kind of impact phase. And authors would also be very involved in sharing their own piece, you know, through social networks and other organisations that they're part of. And it's very good for the author's profile. And so we try to support authors to really make the most of having written in FMR to get their message out. And we find that authors tell us that it often has opened up new opportunities for them. They've been able to network with others. They've been able to use the fact that they published in FMR to maybe get other opportunities. It isn't a classic peer-reviewed journal in an academic sense, but it is a reviewed magazine. So people, you know, express that in different ways when they're citing it, but in general, we say that it is a reviewed magazine. I've probably missed some key things. Tamara, is there something else that I should add now before I maybe open up for a few questions, and then we could go to Nicodemus?
No, I think that's been really helpful, Alice. So yeah, nothing else for now. I'm sure people will have questions.
Okay, great. So would anyone like to ask anything? No question is a silly question. Please just ask whatever you would like to ask. Anything about the process or the audience or this call for articles, do just go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, Grace.
Please, I wanted to find out about the timeline. So, for instance, once we submit the proposals, how long does it take to move to the next stage?
Yes.
I want that will help me with what I'm currently doing if there will be a little time to. That's I just want to know what the timelines will be.
Great question, thank you. Yes, so the proposals for this one are due on the 14th of May, and then we will have about 3 weeks probably till we let you know. We'll probably, because we extended the deadline for the proposals, we'll probably also extend the deadline for the articles, so they will probably be due in mid-July. So you would have I think we were going to give normally 5 weeks to write the article once you know that your proposal is accepted, and we give you 3 weeks. You'd have to wait for 3 weeks to know about the proposal, but all that would be clear also when you put in the proposal. The dates will be there. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Please you can either raise your hand or just interject if you have a question. And Alice, I might just add from the academics perspective, one of the things that I think is great about publishing in FMR is that FMR articles are very widely cited. So often, academic jobs tend to prioritize sort of peer-reviewed articles, and as you mentioned, this is not peer-reviewed in that sense. However, another thing that we're often measured for is citations, and in terms of the impact that we're having. And I certainly find that some of my FMR articles are cited more often than journal articles. So in terms of if you're researching an area and you haven't published, it's also a really good way to stake your claim and tell the world that this is something that you're researching. Even if you're not a long way advanced in your research, there's always something helpful that you could share about it, even if you're quite early on, for example, in a PhD or a master's thesis. And it was really interesting to hear the feedback about opportunities that people get, because I think this is often how people get known. So in terms of raising your profile, I think that FMR is particularly a great place to publish as well.
Yeah, thank you, Tamara. Yeah, it's worth adding, we also hold an author event for networking after the issue launch. So we'll have an online launch. There'll be a panel, and some of the authors are invited to be part of the panel. That raises their profile as well. And then we have a gathering online afterwards so that people can meet. And I've had some really nice moments in those meetings where we get people to say where they're based, but also where they travel a lot. And suddenly light bulbs come on. Oh, I'm always in Nairobi. Oh, let's meet up. Where it might not have been obvious just from their byline, but actually people are making connections. And I know that quite a lot of projects have emerged from joint working where people just didn't realize that they were working on something together. I think in the climate space, there's obviously so much going on across the world at the moment, but making sure that we use this issue to build stronger networks between different regions, between different universities, between different practitioners is really, really important to us. And also, it's worth saying, and it's not something that I make sure we say, so I forgot, but we're based at the University of Oxford. So obviously that is an important name in the academic world, and it does help that you could say that FMR is published by the University of Oxford. So I think that can always add something to your profile. So that's worth saying. I'm wondering if I just quickly show you the form so that when you do get to it, it feels familiar. I'm just gonna just quickly share it. So this is the form that we have. You'll just be asked to put in your name, your job title, your affiliation, what kind of a role you have. We collect gender information just so that we are making sure that we're not disproportionately favouring a particular gender, country of residence, email address, your social media. And then the next part is to actually put in your proposal, like I said, up to 300 words. In terms of what makes a good proposal, I think that, let me just stop sharing that because I don't need to now. What makes a good proposal is one where, as I said earlier, you explain what you're hoping to say, but also you tell us why it's interesting. Why is it unique, or why is your perspective important? You tell us something about where you're coming from with your topic. And I think from talking to Tamara, what I'm really excited about with your network is that a lot of you are working on things that perhaps somebody at the UN doesn't know a lot about, but would be quite interested to know. So if you're working on, you know, the effects of drying up of a lake and the livelihoods that are needing to be transformed in on a particular lake in Chad, then that can still be really interesting as a case study. So you don't have to have necessarily a whole global perspective on something. Actually, the individual can be really interesting. And when I'm looking for different articles to put together, I'm always trying to get the balance between some really local case studies and some more global perspectives. So if you're more of a local person in your research, then I want to encourage you to still think that is a worthwhile thing to put into the proposal form. And if you could also put in your proposal that you are a member of CMARN, that's probably helpful for me, because I know that you have had this extra information, and I'll just make sure that I remember that when I'm looking at the proposals. Great. Are there any other questions before we hear from Nicodemus, which I'm really excited to hear his experience, because I remember him being an author, and I don't always get to hear the other side of the thing. Anyone else? Hopefully that's because I've been comprehensive, not because you've all thought, no way, I'm not writing for FMR, and have yeah. Okay, so I think that's all from me then, and happy to hand over to Nicodemus, who I might ask some questions to if I need to.
Oh,
Mel, did you have a question? No. Okay. Nicodemus, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alice. Tapo, you want to usher me in?
Yes. Maybe before you come in, thank you so much, Alice, for that wonderful presentation. And I'm sure if there are follow-up questions, members are going to reach out to you, you know, to seek clarity. But thank you so much that, you know, the proposal, you know, you've provided the link in terms of accessing the proposal. Nicodemus, I'm not sure if you would want me to introduce you, or you would.
Yes, of course, but I can introduce myself.
Yeah, right. Our next presentation will come from Nicodemus. Nicodemus is going to present from an author's perspective, and allow me to briefly highlight to you who Nicodemus is. Nicodemus is a senior lecturer in the Department of Disaster Management and Sustainable Development of Masinde Mulilo University of Science and Technology in Kenya. He holds a PhD in disaster management and sustainable development. Is a He is a former member of AFSTAC standing for Africa Science Technology Advisory Group of the African Union Commission, with more than 20 years of research experience, focusing on food security, climate change, as well as disaster risk reduction. Nicodemus is also a steering group member of CMARN and a former co-chair of CMARN. So allow me to, Nicodemus, I think with that, you may take the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Thabo, and thank you, Alice, and all the colleagues who have managed to attend today. As you have heard, my name is Nicodemus, and I hope you are hearing me, Thabo. Am I clear?
You are, from me, you are clear.
Okay, thank you. As you've heard, I'm going to speak about my experience. I went through when I did I published with the first migration review, FRM. That was way back in 2022. That was shortly after we had launched our network, CMARN, and there was a message that circulated through the mailing list of our network, just like what has happened now. And I seized that opportunity to try to look at that call. And when I looked at the call, and given the timelines I had in front of me, I realized I didn't have a lot of time. It was that FRM 69, that issue 69. And I looked at it was around late October. And November and December, normally the year ahead is normally a very busy time when you are closing the year. So I needed to look at the focus of the call and how I can maybe contribute. And reflecting on the limited time, I had earlier done some extensive research with the support of IGAD, and I wanted to adapt that work onto fit into the FMR 69. That was on the consideration of disaster risk reduction in the climate change and the development, how they have considered displacement into those frameworks. So from there, I decided to draft that paper, and this paper is published with the FMR 9 is the issue, and it's online. I can show you this just if I can be able to share. A second. So I hope you're able to see this FMR 69. The paper is the call was on climate crisis and displacement from commitment to action. So when I checked on the themes of the call and my previous work I had done, and I found that I can adapt that piece, a piece of I can write for FMR. And my paper now, I did look at is on disaster displacement and disaster risk strategies in the IGAD region. This paper examines the extent in which displacement is referred in the disaster risk reduction strategies. As you're aware, disaster risk reduction strategies are designed in line with the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, with an aim to manage risks, reduce risks as we progress to 2030. And one of the issues that I mentioned about 4 times in the Sendai framework is the issue about the displacement, the disaster displacement, and how to avert it or minimize it is given a lot. And then strategies like relocation are also mentioned, and evacuation procedures. So then in terms of policies, when they're developed, if they don't make reference to that, you will find the issue cannot be addressed in terms of to support or facilitate the safe movement of people or avert the risks that are there on the ground. So then I embarked on reviewing this, and this paper examines the extent in which this the displacement is reflected in the IGAD region. All the member states of IGAD have developed these policies. As you can see, I looked for Kenya and looked for Somalia. I looked at also South Sudan and all the others except Eritrea, where the issue of getting these instruments was not easy to access. So then from there, I made recommendations which tailor to what states can do. How can they incorporate the displacement concerns into their risk reduction strategies in support of implementation of the Sendai framework, and also towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. What I found out in the region, in the IGAD region, is that Somalia, if you look at the strategies for Somalia, that's where you get more reference about displacement compared to the other 8 IGAD member states. The other thing that came out strongly in the Somalia framework is that they tend to also involve the vulnerable groups or the people at risk of displacement. And the policy also talks of how can they assist the people who are affected and those ones who have not been displaced. So it is extensively, it covers both men and women, and especially the vulnerable groups who are at risk of displacement. And if there is need also for other member states in the IGAD region also to see if they can read and see if they can adapt the strategy, the approach that Somalia has given. I find that very, very okay. But the others, member states, like also we see in Uganda, Kenya, and Ethiopia, there is also reference. But in terms of averting displacement, in terms of including people who are vulnerable in the policy frameworks, in terms of being gender sensitive, and all this information is also not well articulated. And strong recommendations I suggested, and the issue of data continues to feature strongly, that there is need for governments to continue maybe develop data profiles disaggregated by age, gender, and other social characteristics, so that they can help to generate evidence to inform action. And then also the other recommendation I made was there is need to use the words into action guidelines. There's a very important tool developed by the UNDRR that is known as the words into action. And it has also an accompaniment as a checklist that helps states that how they can check and see exactly how they can how can they integrate displacement issues into their disaster risk reduction frameworks. And I think this was a very good experience. But once I finished the write-up, I also had experience with the support from FMR. I remember I was contacting a lot a colleague to Alice and called Marion. Marion supported the communication and the supporting the review and to and fro the back and forth. And all the comments that were there, they were more easier to handle, given that I'd already done this work earlier, and it was not a lot of heavy comments that were going to take long. So I managed to handle those comments within the timeline. And towards the end, also, they supported, the FMR supported me with the social media to hook this article into my social media profiles, where I've seen a lot of people have read this article and the citations are coming up. And as Tamara mentioned about the issue about academic work, actually this Monday, there was a deadline in the university here, and they asked us to submit also make application for my next day promotion. And one of the documents I've done is the magazine itself, the original one. I've just attached it in the application process as part of that. Should they ask about this, maybe I'll give the explanation that this is also how the review process goes. Might be it can influence the policy and that science policy interface. The other issue that I think Alice you didn't mention is about the citations. They're not like these academic citations. Like my paper is also only 3 citations. I think they are references. They are 2. I've just made 2 references. So as you went back on your paper, it's not like the academic write-up which we do, but it's more to written in a plain language where you're communicating with the wider audience who can read, and therefore you are going to influence the debates in terms of policy and the practice in this your field. And I'm happy actually to say to inform the colleagues here that this piece of work and other work had published has been read, for example, in the African Union Commission and particularly also in the IGAD region. And one of the meetings I was in Addis Ababa last year, they said I'm a leading voice in the issue of human mobility in the context of disasters and climate change. So I can also inform that you increases the visibility among the decision makers, policy makers, like, for example, IGAD migration. It is very actively involved in looking at how climate change and disasters are affecting these migration pathways, and how can they minimize or address. And there's a lot of action going on, and this kind of visibility makes us as researchers and to be visible and influence what they are doing. So I'm very happy of that, and the entire review process and the support I got, I can say it's not a bad one. It's a good experience. So I think colleagues who are going to submit, even me, if I'm going to consider, though the time is quite limited, but I'm going to reflect on this and also publish once more. So it's a good experience. It's a good way of increasing visibility of our work, and it can influence debates. As you've heard also Alice mentioning that even it can be read in the European Union and other high level, it can be read, and so that people can understand what's the problem and how it can be addressed. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I'm happy to speak to you again. If there's any question, I'm ready to respond to.
Maybe I can just very briefly respond to Nicodemus to say thank you so much for sharing that experience. It's always encouraging to me to know that it's helped with your profile, it's helped to share your work at a wider regional and global level. And I hope it will be an encouragement to others in the group to just take that risk and send us something. Maybe even the process of thinking about how your work could be shared at that level will be useful to you. And what I liked about Nicodemus's article was that it did have those policy recommendations, and that is actually something that often makes an article attractive for us, is that there is something that you're trying to say to people who have something, have power in the situation to change it. It's not necessary always, but it does help. And I know that you have a policy brief series that Tamara shared with me, and so you will already have ideas about how your work is wanting to see change at a policy level. So if that's your angle, then make sure in the proposal that you include, you know, something about that you will share specific policy recommendations. You don't necessarily have to tell us what they are at the proposal stage, but tell us that you will be able to do that. That could help your proposal to succeed. If you have any questions, like Tamara said, further for me, then please do contact me. I can, so our email address is just fmr@qeh.ox.ac.uk, which I think maybe Tamara can share with you. Feel free to email me if you have a question about your proposal. It is the 14th, as Nicodemus said. It's quite soon. It's in 2 weeks' time. So better something than nothing. So do get that. And I'm sure that Tamara would also, you know, has experience of being an FMR author as well. So can maybe offer some perspectives if you need them. I actually have another appointment at 10, so I need to move on. But it's been such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you, Tabo, for chairing, Tamara for inviting, Nicodemus for sharing your experience. It's a great way to start my day over here in London. And I hope that we'll have further interaction in the future, and that you'll all at least read the issue when it comes out in October and share it with others. And do share the call with colleagues that haven't been here. Maybe you know, oh, do you know that person's work? I really should see that in writing. So maybe share it with a colleague today. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Alice. You know, it's been a pleasure listening to you, and we hope that members did benefit. We'll definitely get in touch should there be areas that need clarity. Others, thank you so much for committing yourself to and being part of this webinar. I think on behalf of CMARN members, thank you so much.